Good morning and welcome to this month's discussion for our ATI Zoom call. I want to address what I'll call 4W's for leadership. Actually, it's 4 areas that I've carried all of these years for the last 3 or 4 decades that have served me well in dealing with people, and I want to pass those on to you. We could call it wisdom from above. It's taken out of James chapter 3, verse 13 through 18. Listen to this as he describes what it really means to walk in godly wisdom. This is true for any congregation, if you're leading, or any group that you're leading, business, organization, it doesn't matter. The wisdom from above and wisdom from beneath operate accordingly to that leader and how you approach. So let's look at this. Verse 13 says, "Who is wise and understanding among you?" James is asking that question. It says, "Let them show it by a good life, by deeds done in humility." That's interesting because it says this humility that comes from wisdom. Wisdom brings with it humility. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition, notice those words, we're going to come back to that. If you harbor that in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. In other words, that's not what you want. Next verse. "Such wisdom does not come from heaven, but is earthly." Listen how it's described. Unspiritual and demonic. I think some of the incidences that we see that happen that seem to be demonic come from an earthly wisdom in addressing matters rather than a heavenly wisdom or wisdom from above. The next verse. "For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice." Let me read that again. "For where you have envy and selfish ambition," notice that, "there you find disorder and every evil practice." Verse 17, "But the wisdom that comes from heaven," this is the wisdom from above, "is first of all pure, then peace-loving, submissive, full of mercy, good fruit, and impartial and sincere." The King James says the servant is easily entreated when you're talking about merciful with good fruit. Verse 18, "Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness." What is that harvest? It's the fruit of how we deal and address situations with people. So let me give you these 4 areas in dealing. I'm going to call them 4 W's. 4 W's from heaven, the wisdom from above in dealing with people. Number 1, when situations arise, you must have an incident. Hear me now. Must be an observable incident that you can address. You can't go by hearsay. You can't go by perceiving or what you feel, or you judge this. You saw their attitude and you didn't like their attitude, so now you're going to go address that. You better be careful because they will deny it. And you will get caught up into, well, that's not really what was happening. And so said this. You have to have an actual incident. You have to have what actually happened. You see it, or if a person brings it to you, they have to directly have observed it. Don't take it, "Oh, so-and-so said," and they bring that to you. That will not work. You'll cause more division, and you will come from a wisdom that's from beneath. You have to have an incident. When you have an incident, all you have to say is, "This is what I observed. This is what I saw the other day. Would you tell me what was in your mind? What were you thinking? I observed that you said this. Here's what I observed that you did. What were you thinking? What was in your mind?" You're really there to understand them. They may just need correction rather than reprimanding. They may not have seen it. And I would say, "This is what I observed. Are you aware of that? Were you aware of that? What were you thinking?" And then I can point out, if that were to continue, this is what it will cause. So going forward, meaning I'm not cutting you off, going forward, would you be willing to do such and such and such and such? Now I've dealt with an incident in a way that's given them non-judgmentalism from me. Here's what I observed. Not this is what people are saying, this is what I observed. About 15 years ago, someone came to me and said, hey, some of your leaders, it really wasn't our leaders, but it was influential people in the church that would be seen as leaders, were getting together, having a party, drinking, carrying on some things, not sexually anyway, but just it was a party spirit. It wasn't something that represented me or the work or the church here, and they were real concerned about it. You know, it was bringing different ones in. It was really what the Bible speaks against, about having that party spirit or indulging in those kind of things that would create an atmosphere that would not be healthy and appropriate. But it was a hearsay of what somebody had heard. I could not address it. And the person really wanted me to address it. You've got to deal with it. I said, I can't. I didn't say that to them, but I couldn't do it. So all I could do in that situation was pray over it and intercede over it. There are sometimes that's all you can do. You said, well, but I can't wait and let that go. You have to have an incident. If you walk in there and start stomping on snakes, you will get bit, and you're going to cause more division and every evil practice from a wisdom that's from beneath rather than that which is above, which is peace loving, and you're looking for opportunities. So in that sense, incident, without an incident, you can only pray or wait. See, the Holy Spirit sees it before you do. You're not a Gestapo. You don't have to correct every situation, but what you observe, you're responsible for. What comes to you directly, and that person is willing to go with you. And if it's a hearsay from them, then it has to be driven back. You have to say to them, go back to that person and say, how do you know that to be true? Would you go that individual so that they would be willing to address it? You've got to keep it within the incident. So make sure there's an incident. Number 2, no grudges. Now it says, don't harbor any bitterness or selfish ambition that comes out of grudges. Grudges are developed out of that. You did this to me, that's pride. Ambition, I'm going to get you back. Grudges are, man, they hurt the body of Christ. They hurt any organization. Now, I believe we are to be vulnerable, transparent, share our feelings, tell others when we're hurt. If it's a counselor you're talking to, a pastor you're hurt, it's okay to go to that individual and say, I don't know if you're aware of this, that really hurt me. But you can't hold a grudge. You can't walk down the other aisle. You cannot do that. And this is really on me right now because I see believers, they nourish their feelings, which we want to encourage them sharing their feelings, but then it becomes a block of what's happened to them. They become a victim. It's in our culture right now, victim. They become a victim and they hold a grudge against those people. You're not allowed to do that as a believer. You can't do it. Not even overnight. You can't hold it overnight. So you have to let it go. So this is what you have to do. You have to say, Lord, yes, I was hurt. And I've cried out, God, they hurt me. I've been there. You need to be there. But then, Lord, I'll release it to you. If I don't, then I've taken vengeance into my hand. I'm trying to punish those people. If I isolate myself from them, if I remove myself from them, then I am trying to punish them. I'm going to go the other way. So, well, I just can't do that. Grow up. You have to do this. Maturity. Love covers a multitude of sin. Now, I didn't say love covers up sin. I said love covers a multitude of sin. True love comes out of maturity, wisdom that's from above. You can love them in spite of their unlovableness, but if you hold a grudge against them, it'll begin to affect you emotionally. Which brings me to the next point. No labels. Labels come out of grudges. They're a rebellious person. They're a divisive person. They're just going to do this. Once you label someone, you have removed yourself from authority in their life because emotionally you'll detach. You can't do it. You cannot allow yourself to label, even if you don't use your words, label them in your mind. Say, God, I release them. You're your children, and I'm going to be there for them. I'm going to pull them close. When I have a conflict with someone, I want to pull them close. I want to be with them relationally every way. Now, they're really uncomfortable, and they don't want to be around me, but I'm going to pull them close. And then if they leave not because I neglected them, but because they didn't want to confront. So I'm going to pull them close. I'm not going to isolate them. I'm not going to label them. I'm not going to push them aside. I'm going to let vengeance be the Lord and not mine. So don't label them. Number 4, accept criticism. Man, this is one of the biggest, hardest keys I ever received. You know where I got this? From Charles Stanley. I remember in the late 80s going through a lot of hard times, a lot of criticism. Oh, man. Sometimes I felt like there was a demon twisting everything that was being said. It's like everything got turned around. I announced one Sunday morning we had 150 people in our foundation class. Through the next week, someone told me, I heard 150 people left your church and started another church next door. Well, they were in the church building next door in our discipleship orientation or foundational class. Oh, I won't even go into all of those times of criticism, but criticism really was hard for me. And I heard Charles Stanley teach this message on, I think it's like 15 things to do to receive praise and criticism. I memorized it, got up and preached it on a Sunday night. I told the church, this is Charles Stanley's, this is not mine. And I'm going to give it to you because it's helping me. Well, I can't remember the whole message, but there's 3 things on criticism that never left me. And I still practice today. Even though it's hard, I believe it's being easily entreated. Number 1, he said, accept criticism. When someone comes to you, they've got both guns loaded and they're ready to blast you. Let them blast you. Let them criticize. What if in that criticism, there's just 10% truth? What happens in us, we begin to defend against the criticism rather than listen to, is there possibly some truth in that criticism? Now, what Charles Stanley said, he said, just accept the criticism. And when you do, then say to that person, I'm hearing you. I accept your criticism. I'm listening to it. And then say to them, if you're seeing that, probably you can see other things that I can't see. Are there other things that I'm not seeing? Oh, wow. That was so hard. It's still hard for me to do. It's gotten easier. I remember about 10 years ago, we had a guy over in the Wausau campus. I mean, he had his ducks in a row. He came both guns loaded, had people supporting him, and he was coming in and he was going to really blast me. And I heard him out. And he surprised him. Totally got him off guard because I heard him out. I heard what he was saying. And when he finished, I said, you know what? I'm going to take that to heart. I'm going to submit that to the brothers because possibly there's some things I'm not seeing. And while we're on this subject, if you can see that, what else can you see that I can't see? It diffused the whole situation. All of his notes and all of his preparation went out the window. He just laid it aside. And he scooted up and leaned toward me. Started talking about how much he loved. It disarms yourself. It's wisdom from above. It's not divisive. It's easily entreated. So say, I'm going to hear that criticism. Is there anything else that you see? And then say to them, I'm going to take that to heart. I'm going to take that to my brother over here. I'm going to take this. I'm going to submit that because I know they watch out. You could be a spiritual father you take it to. I'm going to take it to others because I really want to grow. Wow. Hope those 4 areas will be helpful to you. Let's talk about this and see how you can apply wisdom from above over wisdom from the earth. God bless you.